Hey everybody, it's Amy here, and you probably know my friend Mark from all the times that we've hung out together. We're in my friend Doug's house, and we've got some other people here on the screen to introduce you to. Just to let you know, we will cover a little bit about how you can join the green room, how you can join the studio with us later, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick intro to what's going on here. Super casual. I want you to feel comfortable to get up and get snacks. If your cat's running across the screen, you guys who are here in the green room with us, we'll probably have that too. But just want to let you know, we're glad you're here. My name is Amy Register. I have a very small channel called Ask a Christian on YouTube and also a page on Facebook. It's dedicated to authentic discussion surrounding the Christian worldview. Love getting questions from people, love having dialogue with people. And so we have decided that we wanted to do something a little bit different. It's kind of a hybrid model between what's going on here in Doug's living room. There's a few of us, and then inviting some of you to join us online. And then the wider audience, people will be viewing online. So that's kind of what's going on here. And the series that you have happened upon is called The Road. We're going to be discussing some of the bigger movements of the Christian scriptures. We're going to be discussing what are the themes. And then most importantly, and kind of why I'm here, is where do you think you fit in all of this? Where do we all fit in the narrative of the Christian scriptures? So I want to welcome you. I know some of my ads have appeared on channels for pagan rituals. I know they've appeared on some who are, mostly agnostic and questioning. And so I have no idea where you found out about this, but you're welcome. Your worldview is welcome here. Nobody here is interested in pushing their religion or their view. We definitely want authentic discussion, but we find that it's our job just to let you know, in the marketplace of ideas, what do Christians even believe? What is it that makes Christianity distinct? And of course, we can spend time comparing and contrasting. But our goal in this series, The Road, is to give an overarching view of what are the themes of the Christian scriptures. So, is this for you? I don't know. I'm going to give you a couple of bullet points where you can kind of measure if you think that you're going to have a good time here or not. First of all, if you are interested in seeing what Christianity has to offer through its story, through its narrative of the Bible, yes, you're going to have a good time here. If you are interested in experiencing the God of the Bible, testing him out, trying him out, you've heard of Christianity, maybe somebody's presented to you in a way that was appealing, and you thought, okay, yeah, I want to dip my toe in. You're going to enjoy it here. People who are not going to enjoy it here are people who are super my way or the highway denominationalists. Not that we don't have denominations of our own. That's just not what we're here to do during this series. And we're not into it that hardcore anyway, frankly. And then if you are an angry atheist or a diehard skeptic, this probably won't be for you either, because our goal is not to change your mind or prove God and his existence. Rather, for somebody with a seeking heart, this is going to be an invitation to try him, to learn about what the Bible says, and then again, to dip your toe in and see if God responds to you and see what that experience is like. All right. Finally, the last long-winded thing I'll say before I'll kick the mic over to Mark is that our approach is a little bit different. Our approach to Christian scriptures, especially for this, is more open, because we want to learn from one another. Like, I've really had a good time in the last year trying to learn how to humble myself and learn beautiful spiritual things from so many different people. And that was kind of the impetus for this. So it's a little bit more open-minded, but we are going to be approaching this as if we are the intended audience of the Christian scriptures. So we're approaching this kind of with an open mind. What would have the original audience thought about some of these things? And our approach does not ask you to put your ideas that you hold dearly aside, but we are asking you to step into the place with us where you can consider us as a friend and what we're presenting to you as like friendly information as opposed to combative. Is that a word? Yeah. We're also approaching this pretty casually, as I mentioned, and ultimately we're approaching this as something that can be an experience for you and for us rather than just a knowledge-based study. So the acronym, the ROAD, actually means something. This is not my genius, by the way, but the guy who wrote this book, Marcus Torres, ROAD stands for review, open, ask, and decide. And what we're hoping that you will do as you go through this book, and by the way, if you don't have the book yet, the downloads are free. So we have commitment. Mark told me he's going to give me all of his candy money. We commit to making sure that if you're joining us, you have these study materials for free. They are $27 on Amazon if you want to buy the book yourself. If you guys in the background have that link, you can, thank you, Mark. You can copy and paste so the people have the link to the book. And then there's also a link for an ebook. So if you don't have it and you want it, you can email me at askachristianfriend@gmail.com. My chat folks can help with that as well. But all right, so anytime during this meeting, there's going to be some Q&A time. So go ahead and type your questions and answers in. My friend Maticus is going to be taking down some of the major questions that you have. And if we don't get to all of them, you sure can email us. I'll do my best. But we want you to participate. We want you to have fun in the chat. And we want you to come into our green room if you have more than just a quick thing to say. And Matt and Seth that you see on the screen now will be sending out the link from time to time. And if you are subscribed, you have the link to the green room. We're experimenting with this. It could be wild. It could be great. It could be terrible. This is the first time. So with all of that housekeeping, if you're not sleeping, thank you for being with us. Thanks for checking out the road. We're going to go through some cool stuff tonight. And I'm going to ask, can you guys pop Mark up on the solo view screen? And I'll have him open us with prayer before we get into covering some of the some of the big points from the road.
Dear God, thank you for the chance just to come together and hang out with people and talk about some of the big themes of how to get to know you better and just to look at some of the movements of yours in the past. So we're asking now that our time together would be fun, that we can have some humor, and that we can see what you have done in the past, and we can see what you hopefully have for us today. So thank you, God, for hearing and answering this prayer, and we ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, friends. I'm going to just go to my notes here. I also wanted to say that you do not have to have this book to hang out with us, to follow along with us. It will be helpful. But I'm going to try to have somebody summarize some of the main chapter points before we get into discussion. And I have asked Ben to do that for chapter 1. Would you guys pop Ben up on the solo and let us see him while he does a couple second summary?
Hello, everybody. So happy to be here. And yeah, the chapter 1 starts with a very interesting word, the beginning. And the beginning, the main points of this chapter that we're going to be exploring is first and foremost who God is. which, by the way, it's pretty much the whole purpose of the Bible. The whole purpose of Christianity is just understanding who God is. So we start with that question: who is God? Who is God? And right off the offset, we start seeing that God is love, and that in the beginning existence was made, and we were made not to please God, not because he was bored or whatever, but because he wanted to love us. Just like parents that are happy and they want to share their love, they want to share their house, they want to share their resources, and they have a son or a daughter that I want to love or adopt or whatever. That's the big picture of God made us to love us. Um, there was an interesting part also that was noted in this chapter, and is that in that very story of God making everything, it comes to this part of the seventh day when he made us, and then in the seventh day he said that he rested, he stopped. And right there we can see this purpose of creation, that it wasn't, hey, I made you so start serving me. It wasn't that. It wasn't, I made you so start worshiping me because I'm an egomaniac that I need beings to worship him. No. He made us, and then he, right there after finishing creating everything, he just said, okay, now I want you to enjoy everything that I have created, as a couple, and everything in existence. So yeah, the first chapter, it's a very packed and punchy chapter that we're gonna be talking about.
All right. Thank you so much, Ben. We do believe in spoiler alerts here. So it's helpful if you haven't read, you just want to wrap your head around what's coming. And the theme today, in fact, this whole story is going to have something to do with love. So many people, even if they don't know much about the Bible, like before I knew much about the Bible, I had heard the first verse of Genesis, the first book in the Bible, repeated a lot of times. And I'm wondering if you at home watching know it by memory as well. Did you guys grow up hearing it at
Absolutely.
all? Yeah.
I think one of the first verses I learned.
Yeah, it was one of the first verses I learned too, except for Jesus wept, which was really short. It's like the shortest verse in the Bible. So I got money for memorizing that. I was like, yes. But the first verse in the Bible is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that's all cool if you grew up Christian. That's okay. You don't have a question. But if you didn't grow up as a Christian, you're like, whoa. Who's God? Who is this God? What's he creating for? And you have way more questions than if you kind of grew up in a religious background. So one of the things that this book brings out is like, whoa, hold up, slow down. Because if you read a few verses, you find out that this God may or may not be different from other gods that you know. For example, he goes through the whole days of creation. And by the way, as we talked about before, we know people are going to be watching us who approach the Bible differently, more allegorically versus more literal. And first, I want you to know that literally, nobody takes the Bible literally.
No.
Nobody does. Even those people who are worshiping with snakes all around because they found one verse in the Bible that talks about you got to do the snake worship. Even they do not take every verse out of context and apply it to themselves. Nobody has the patience or lifespan for that. So when I tell you that I take the Bible more literally, I want you to know that I take it literally in context, which means if it sounds like a genealogy, it's probably a genealogy. It's not totally. If it sounds like creation, it's probably creation. It might be poetic, but I think that it is more literal with allegorical applications. And some people think that the Bible is fully allegorical with maybe some real history. I just want you guys to know that that's where I'm coming from as we approach the story, because as this God spends 6 days on creation, the cool part is that I do believe there is a literal thing that happens here when it comes to the creation of mankind. The story goes that God forms man out of the dust of the ground, kind of a poor man's version of Play-Doh. And when it comes to bringing life into this man, he bends over and he uses his godly breath of life and breathes into Adam's lungs. Imagine Adam, his first conscious thought, his first idea, his first awakening is face to face with God. Now, I want to ask you guys in our studio, at home, wherever you are, what kind of God would choose this method for introducing life to mankind, to humankind, I should say?
It would seem to me to be an intimate God. I mean, a God that if you're going to create something with your hands or, go face to face, an intimate, personal God who I would say is interested in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, not to be vulgar, but it sounds like a makeout session to me. Nobody is going to get that close to me, put their hands on me, and be mouth to mouth and nose to nose and eyeball to eyeball, unless we are in an intimate relationship. And I'm being tongue in cheek with the makeout session, of course, but I'm not trying to dirty it up. I just want you to know that is a space inhabited by very few humans.
There's a high level of intimacy there.
Real high.
Whether it's parents and children.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
I think there's a I don't know. I read this in some communication class that, there's like hand to hand and head to head and forehead to forehead. And, when you're face to face with somebody, that is pretty intimate. So whether you believe that this story is baloney or whether you believe every word is true, the point that the author is trying to get across to us is that this God that he knows, that he's interested in, that he is trying to convey something to us. And that is that compared to other gods, we believe the author was Moses, by the way, traditionally. He had run into other cultures by this time, and he's trying to convey to us that this God is more intimate, more interested in humanity than other gods. Now, if you're watching this, if you come from a different background than Christianity especially, and you know of a God that is, it's got a similar story, I am so interested. I'm not being sarcastic or weird at all. I don't want to put you on the spot or make you, share a belief that you weren't planning on exposing. But I would love to know if there are other stories like this. Have you guys heard of anything similar?
I have not.
No.
All right.
I don't think they feel that way necessarily about Buddha and Confucius. Very wise people, yes, but
Yeah.
intimate?
Wise, but not intimate.
Is
Doug's
it
saying.
intimate? Is there a relationship that, like you said, right? You're gonna get face to face in. Is a father-child relationship where that child just jumps into the father's arms and trusts altogether? Confucius saying, I don't think so. Right? It's a different God.
Yeah, I don't know how well you guys can hear. Doug, you can let us know. We do have the ability to pass the mic a little bit. But anyway.
Amy, it seems like in a lot of belief systems, God is kind of out there. He's not. I mean, you got to kind of work to get to him, or you've at least got to remove a lot of barriers, maybe climb some mountain, whatever it is. You got to work to get to him because he's not getting too close. He's hand off, right? He's standoff, and I just think it's awesome here. It's like not only is God close, like he's initiating the relationship. He's right down on Adam, and the first thing Adam knows, he's talking with God close.
All the single ladies and maybe even all the single men are like in that initiation. Can I get a witness? Thank you, Tim. So my question that I wrote down on my page, I think, Tim, you've answered it a little bit, but one of my questions is this appealing to you? Is this appealing to you, or is it a little bit freaky? Because some people really like God to be far off. I can imagine a situation where I'd feel the same way. If I didn't already like him, if I didn't already know him, if I didn't grow up with some of this positive, benevolent God background stuff, I'd be like, yeah. I don't know if I want him that close.
A little too much power, a little too close, huh?
Yeah. I want to do one more thing from this, or maybe two more things from this chapter 1. The question, I think, kind of follows naturally this discussion. So please know I'm not being pedantic. I'm not trying to, trip you up or anything when I ask these questions. But why do Christians believe that God actually created them? For what reason would a God of the universe desire lowly human companionship? And of course, we've touched on this with the intimacy, but where is this taking you? What kind of ideas are you having about why God would create us?
For me, I say maybe the same reason why parents sometimes create children, or sometimes why people create, larger friend groups or larger circles. I think God desired, and God still desires, relationship. God desires to get to know people, and you can't know people unless they're created, unless they're there. So I would say that out of that love, and also for a purpose, but I would say that God created, from my perspective, one, because God desired a level of fellowship and intimacy that was not there before, and God desired to give us a purpose.
All right. Thank you, Mark. I see all of your comments. Just so you guys know, if you joined us late, hi, Cyrus. We're going to be taking some of your questions and comments here kind of between the chapters as we have time. Mark is, he stole a page right out of the road. And if you guys haven't got to see that yet, part of this discussion takes us through the biblical definition of love. There are lots of definitions for love. And I'm thinking about like 600 songs. What song are you thinking when I say, I want to know what love is? Are you thinking, I want you to show me? I bet you are. But the road takes us through some Bible verses that give us the equation. Another Bible verse I memorized when I was little is in this chapter, and it basically sums up the whole point of what love is by saying God equals love, and it's equation that the Bible talks about over and over again. And then you say, okay, well, what is love? And if you've ever been to a wedding, you've probably heard one of the most famous poetic passages on what love is in the whole world, Christian or not. Do you guys know that part in Corinthians where Paul the Apostle just kind of lists out some things? If you're looking for what love is, here it is. What stands out to you guys who know that passage? What does it culminate in? If you did the road homework, you'll 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. It ends up by saying that the best way to look at love is other-centeredness, selflessness. If God is love, then he must be selfless. Everything that he does must be other-centered love. I won't get into this. I'm already looking at the time, seeing we're approaching 8 o'clock already. But when John talks about, well, I should back up and say there are 4 gospels in the Bible. One is written by a man named John, who has a special connection with Jesus, and therefore a special connection with God, because Jesus says that he is God in the flesh. So this is his claim. You can check it out if you want to. But when John talks about this love that God is, he had several different words to choose from. I don't expect anybody to be a Greek scholar here except Mark and Pastor Rob, who is watching online. Hello, Pastor Rob. But he had several Greek words to choose from. Many of you know philia, which is that brotherly love. You know, the city of Philadelphia gets its name from that word. Philanthropic. Philharmonic. We love sounds.
Yes, friendly sounds.
Yeah. So this word was possible. When God is love, he could have meant brotherly love, and he could have meant eros or erotic love. That was another word available to him for that vocabulary. But when he said God is love, the word that he picked, you guys know it. Type it in the chat if you know it. It's the word agape, for other-centered, and most times it was used to mean unconditional love. And so that is the type of God the Bible presents. Now, do you have big questions about why a God of love would act a certain way? I sure hope you do. Like I said, I don't want you to throw your thoughts out the window when you're trying to figure out the God of the Bible. But this is a claim, and we'll figure out if we can back that up later. So John uses agape, meaning other-centered and unconditional love, to describe who God is. The reason why this is important to us tonight is because, here's the next question. Can God be other-centered if there is no other hanging out with him? Can he actually be a God of love if there is no one on which to bestow love?
He has to spread the love. Who is he going to spread it to? So he creates us.
There you go. So Doug is taking a shortcut to where we want to go. If you've ever wondered why Christians care if God is 3 in 1 or 3 separate or whatever, it's like our pagan friends do not stress over whether they, have this many pantheon, this many gods in the pantheon or not. Our friends from Islam are so sure that God is one and one alone. So why has this become a theological debate? It seems worthless to many of us. But here's the kernel of truth. If God is not other himself, then before he created us, before he created angels, before he created anything, he would not necessarily have to be love. And so we are talking about the theology of love even more than the theology of God, which I guess is the same thing. But if his greatest design, if his greatest existence is this community of other-centered beings where the Father is always loving and deferring to the Son is always loving and deferring to the Spirit is always loving and deferring, is whenever you have this, you have complete other-centered love, because none of them could be jealous, none of them could be promoting their own ideas. And what does this perfect love do when it overflows out of itself? Well, Doug, now you got it. And Mark, like you were saying before,
spread the love.
You gotta spread the love. What do humans do when they're so in love and they want to be, they get married and have babies, or have babies and then get married, whichever way they do it these days. But the truth is, even though humans know, Doug and Ellie, they're married, they knew when they got married and decided to produce children that there was a possibility that their kids would have harm done to them. They knew there was a possibility that things might not turn out well, that they might love and their kids might not love in return, but they still decided to make babies, or a baby? Babies. Yeah. So you can start, because of what God gave us to do. He told us in the Bible to be fruitful and multiply. You see that multiplication of love happens naturally with true love. You cannot help but want to bring other people into it if you're having a good time. and it's, you know, it's a beautiful thing. It's a high calling to create out of love, whichever, you know, whatever way that takes you. So what,
piggyback on that, even in the creation, God said, be fruitful and multiply. So spread love.
be fruitful and multiply. So spread the love. That's what Doug says. All right. I want Matt or Seth to pop up and read a couple questions or comments that you guys had flagged.
Seth, would you like to?
I think Seth's out of the stream. Let's pop.
So, I believe it's pronounced Chris, says, I'm very religious, but very curious. It sounds like a God who is very dedicated to his creations. It seems like the Christian God really liked humans and does seem pretty parental.
There you go. Thank you. That's she pronounces her name Cyrus.
Cyrus, okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cyrus. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Fiona. Thank you so much. Ooh, is that Maria? Hi, Maria. So excited to see you guys all on. All right. Well, we haven't been able to give this the full and appropriate treatment that we'd like to, of course. But just watching the time, wanting to make sure that we get some highlights in. I think Faith is on with us. Faith, are you ready to go? I'm just going to summarize this really quickly. I know Ben gave us the highlights at the beginning, but just overall theme here that we've been discussing is God's desire to create us out of love, out of his own other-centered love, and his desire for us to be like him and made in his image, which is personal. And we've got our own, you know, we've got everything about us intact, but his desire for us to be one with him as he is one with the other members of the Godhead. So unity and community are the big keywords, and that's how God is presenting himself in the early chapters of the Bible. All right, Faith, are you ready to be punched up on the screen and give us kind of what your thoughts are? Give us 60 seconds on what chapter 2 covered, some of the big ideas.
Am I on? At this chapter 2, the author tried to answer another existential question. What's our creation for? So Genesis chapters 1 and 2 presented the answer to that question in 3 themes: purpose, connection, and celebration. So theme 1, purpose. So God assigned Adam and Eve to tend and watch over the Garden of Eden and to rule over the animals. In short, Adam and Eve were not just to be lazy or to be dilly-dally, but God lovingly told them to work on making the earth more beautiful. And then the second theme, connection. Through a peaceful, loving community that humans build, through social relationships between humans, through connection between people together, we beautify the world. And theme 3, celebration. We shouldn't forget that we weren't created just for a purpose of endless production and consumption. After a week long of work in, for example, tending the earth, we are to celebrate on the 7th day with God, the source of love. Our intimate relationship with our Creator, a day, the Sabbath day, right, spent with Him is a celebration, knowing that we are truly loved for who we are and not what we produce. So the title of this chapter is The Song, as the author wants to relate creation into like an orchestra, beautifully tuned notes in pleasant harmony together. So man, woman, God in intimate connection with one another and the world around them. Okay, that's the summary. In 60 seconds.
Thank you, Faith. All right, so again, Faith is kind of summarizing this chapter in saying that not only, like chapter 1, did God create us for love, for enjoyment, but he had more of a purpose. The author brings out 3 distinct purposes that are apparent in the garden, and I want to know if you guys did your homework. It'll be easy for you if you guys haven't downloaded the book yet. You might still know. So type it into the chat if you know. In Genesis, when God starts doing his creative power thing, he says, this was good, and that was good, and that was very good. But there is a time in Genesis where even before sin in the story, where God said something wasn't good. If you know when that time was, I want to see you type it in. I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds. When was the first time that God declared something not good? And give you a hint. It is just the opposite of why he was saying he created us. Play that Jeopardy music, Seth. Just kidding. We don't have it. Seth's gonna be like, oh, we should put Jeopardy music in here. No. Yes. Okay. I see Rhonda Kale popping up. Y'all don't even need to answer because Rhonda got it right. Don't stop now if you're mid-type. I want to see your flair. But yes, the first time, thank you, Gina. The first time that God says something is not good is when he looks on the loneliness of man. See, we could get into the details and the background on why God did what he did, but we won't do that today. Thank you, Cyrus. Oh, thank you, P-Rob. Thank you, Dougie Fresh. Yes, men should not be alone. Now, some men should. We won't get into that
People should
either.
not be alone.
Yeah, people should not be alone because as we were studying in the first section, the joy that comes with unity and community is kind of what we're hitting on here. And so God, pulling a little trick, email me if you want to know more, said, hey, it is not good for humankind to be alone. And that's when he made a mate. So that's exactly what, like we had been talking about, is that unity and community are God's plans for us. And so loneliness is not good. It's a killer. People are more likely to die of loneliness than a 14 cigarette a day habit or something like that. I read it somewhere one time. Mark, you have a comment?
No, I was just saying, I mean, we were created for community, even if we are introverts, even if we are, we only want a few relationships, or else we don't get our energy from the crowds. We all need somebody, or it's like, some people to, be in community with. And so when God sees everybody else has, something for it, it's like, no, like God didn't say that this isn't, that we can do something better. He was saying it's not good. So I think even for those of us who might not get our energy from all kinds of people, we're still built for community. We're still built to be in relationship with others.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mark. I see that Fiona asked a question, when was Adam without Eve? My understanding is that it was not longer than a day.
Oh, no, I think she was asking, I think she was saying when Adam was without Eve.
When Adam was, but it has a question mark.
I think it was, I'm not sure of my answer.
Thank you, Fiona. All right, that's fun. Okay, so just back to the summary, to the overview. There are things that my environmental friends are going to love about this section. If you are a tree-hugging hippie like I am, please go back and read this. If you care about the environment, if you think, man, I would be a Christian, but I'm so ashamed at like how they treat nature or whatever. We have been guilty as a people of thinking, we believe that God's coming back soon, so we don't pick up after ourselves. And there was a time in history where, Christians were litterers. Hopefully not anymore. But
I don't want to get ahead of you, but this is my favorite point. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
here.
Okay, so just real quickly, what were some of the things that God wanted Adam and Eve to do? Even this world of perfection so far, what were some of the things that God planned for Adam and Eve to do? Was it to sit in a hammock and eat Cheetos and watch Netflix? Mark?
No,
Like Mark?
no, that was not the plan. God gave us something to do.
Okay, what was it? Do you want to? We're not trying to steal all the thunder here.
He was a Mark Miller. He was a biologist.
Oh, okay. Doug's saying that that Adam was meant to be a biologist, supposed to
Name the animal.
name the animals. Okay, got that binomial nomenclature and such. But yeah, if you guys, well, I don't know what it is like in your PDF, but in the physical book, the road gives us on page 25 a couple of verses to look at, and we start to see a pattern emerge where God puts Adam and Eve in the garden and he gives them dominion, which is kind of an old English word for gives them rulership, ownership, and it's a loving stewardship. It's a loving word. It's a caretaking word. And that's repeated so many times in here, even in this short study. You cannot escape the fact, the knowledge that Adam and Eve were supposed to tend the garden, make the world flourish. And I learned something just from this that I had not realized before. When you read the different creation accounts, it does sound in Genesis 2 like there were places left on the earth that needed to be cultivated, that the shrubs had not been planted yet, that some of the beautiful design was not yet done. And that's really cool. They were supposed to bring beauty to the earth. That was one of their things.
And
So,
Amy, something really interesting when we
you
come
guys
to
pop Ben up when he's a solo speaker.
something really interesting about God. Is it on now? Something really interesting about God giving humans something to do instead of just making them for not doing anything, is that when we look at all those things, Adam and Eve had a beautiful home, had a job that they draw satisfaction from what they were doing, and had their soulmates. And that just sounds like the dream. It sounds like what we all are trying to do. We are saving to build this beautiful house. In my case, somewhere far in a cabin, and we're looking to find this person to share our happiness with, and also our sadness with. This partner and these friends, and we're looking to be well in a job, in a work, in a volunteer role, or whatever it is that we are happy to, that we wake up excited about. Today I'm going to do this and whatever. So like it sounds like what God intended for us is actually what we're looking for, even in 21st century. It's like a good job, a nice home, and a person to share all of that with.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Because what Ben is saying is that the things that we naturally love, the things that we are naturally attracted to, are in fact part of God's plan. That is a huge relief for someone who, as a kid, what does God want for me? What is the point of my life? If we take our cues from Genesis, we're supposed to have connection, we're supposed to have meaningful work, and now we're going to get to the third one. We're supposed to have celebration. I'm not sure I got that message as a Christian kid. Not that my family was particularly somber or anything like that, but nobody celebrated celebration. And to come across a God who presents himself that way is phenomenal. Now, you might ask, okay, well, what proof do you have, or what evidence do you have that God is God of celebration? You guys have heard this word a couple times already. It's a weird word to many ears, but the word is Sabbath or Shabbat in the Hebrew. And my pagan friends listening will also be familiar with Sabbaths because their Sabbaths are actually festivals or celebrations. And that's kind of what it is supposed to be. That is a significant part of what this word means. And here's the cool thing about what we read about this God. This God creates mankind on the 6th day. And then on the 7th day, before they've done much work, before they've even gotten tired, God throws a party. And again, it's a party of connection. It's a party of love. And some of, we can get into the deep significance of the Sabbath, but for now, all I really want you to understand is that what kind of God creates humankind and then just wants to hang out with them on the day after creation. That's not in any other creation myths. That's not in any other deity sort of stories that I know of. And if you know one, please let me know. I'm always open to learn more. So in closing this chapter, I do see some of your questions. We'll get to those in a second. Matt and Seth, if you've taken any notes of ones that we've skipped, let me know. But we've gotten these themes from Genesis so far. It's connection, it's purpose, it's other-centered love, and it's celebration. That's how the God of the Christian scriptures is presenting himself. All right. Anybody want to pop up the question? And by the way, you guys can share the link to bring somebody else into the green room. We can have up to 10 in here at a time. All right, I see Cyrus. Seems like God is excited to the people he created. It does seem that way. Yeah, and if the story of we're looking for internal consistency whenever we try to figure out if a worldview makes sense. So a God who declares his love and then actually wants to spend time with the object of this love makes sense internally. All right. Now, guys, here's the last chapter and the one that kind of sucks. It's the sucky chapter. This third chapter is when all of this awesomeness, this love, this other-centeredness, all of this goes spiraling out of control. And unfortunately, it happens really early on in the Bible. So we don't ever get to see what an entire community of people living like this looks like, because it gets spoiled pretty darn quickly, which is one of people's major objections against Christianity, frankly. So if that's been something that you're concerned about, email me. I would love to talk with you about it. But I do believe Tim has the 60-second preview of this chapter. Tim, I'm going to pop you up full screen.
Okay. Well, thanks, Amy. Yeah, in this chapter, it's called The Fall. And we still use that term to talk about somebody who's been on a high pedestal and they did something really wrong, and we say, oh, they had a big fall. We see that in political leaders. We see it in celebrities, those we follow in the media. In this case, it's discussing the third chapter of Genesis. So in the very third chapter of the Bible, we see this creature show up, and it's called the serpent there. And that serpent somehow is somebody we shouldn't be talking to. God makes it clear that you shouldn't go in this certain tree. You shouldn't go around it. You shouldn't eat of its fruit. And in some ways, that eating of the fruit is a little metaphorical in the sense, because you're going to see in that third chapter of Genesis that this serpent somehow talks. Yes, it sounds very phantasmagorical, but remember, there's a lot of things that are unusual about the first two chapters. The perfection you see, the face-to-face communication with God. And so this third chapter talks about this being that shows up and tries to convince people that although they really have it good, they don't have it as good as they think they do, and that God's holding out on them. God doesn't want them to live at a higher state. And you may see people talk about this now, like, oh, you can live at a higher level of existence. Well, that kind of salesmanship was tried originally, in Genesis 3. And so the Bible goes and talks about this creature in various times, even during the prophetic books in the middle of the Bible, and even in the very last chapter of the Bible, it mentions this creature. It calls him a dragon then because this creature is proven to destroy people in Genesis 3. So it talks about the fall where people decided they were going to believe this lie being told about God. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, love is other-centered. It gives. And this lie said, you got to take. You got to take something God's not giving you, and he's holding out something good. And so it's a lie about who God really is. And that's the chapter's focus. What was that lie, and what is the character of this person who told the lie? And that's the origin of how everything went bad. But it was really a lie about how good Adam and Eve really had it, that God was holding something back when in fact God's proven himself throughout history that he's given. He gives and gives and gives.
Thank you, Tim. As Tim said, the theme of chapter 3 in the road is to let us know, if you're wondering, this perfect world that God supposedly created, this God who's intimate and intends love and peace and goodwill for us, where to go. If that's what you are wondering as you read through this narrative so far, you're not alone. Many people have wondered before and will wonder after you. And we come to this issue as thinking people where we can read those words and close up the scriptures, the Christian scriptures, and say, well, that doesn't match up with reality, so it absolutely cannot be true. But what the road takes us through is another possibility altogether. As Tim mentioned, there's a character introduced. Christians traditionally call him Satan or the devil, or conjures up these little red guys with pitchforks, or the angel on each shoulder, or whatever it is. But the word is actually just the Hebrew word for the enemy, the Satan, and we've transliterated it. Yeah, the accuser. We've turned it into Satan, but I will try to remember to call him or it the Satan, and we'll get into more about who this was and why he was a little bit in just a second. But the story goes that this Satan was in heaven with Jesus and God and was created good. And then for some reason, this is one of the biggest mysteries in Christianity. For some reason, this being who had it all, friends with God, all the perks of heaven, decided that he wanted to rebel. We're only given a few clues about the character, or this character is, in several different places in the Bible, and we have to piece it together like a puzzle. But don't think that it doesn't end up being clear. This was an angel. This was a covering angel, someone very close to God, who actually stood near his throne and betrayed him immensely. But the why, even the Bible can't really tell you why. The how, we have a little bit more information on. It seems that there was a war in heaven. The Bible talks about it. But some of you who have been reading the book so far know what kind of war it is. I want to ask you to write in the chat, what were the weapons? What were the primary weapons in this war of the Satan versus God? I'm going to wait just a couple seconds because I want to see what your answers say. What were the primary weapons used in this war in heaven, mentioned in a couple different places in the Bible and in your study materials? I see you, Rhonda. Yeah. Guys, don't let Rhonda do the heavy lifting now. I know. It's hard to get over to your phone and type it in and all that. Yeah. Slander. Words and ideas. Thank you, Furman. All right. You guys are on the right track. Yeah. You got it. All right. So yes, the accuser is a good hint, Doug. Thank you. What's going on is clear to us only if we understand Greek and a certain word in Greek. And the couple of pastors around here can probably spell this properly. But when we hear that there was a war in heaven, the word war was the word polemos. Am I saying that right, Mark?
Yes.
Polemos. And that probably sounds like a word that you've heard. Polar, polemic, politic. Are we getting close? This war in heaven was a war of ideas and a war of government. And if you don't think that this applies to what's going on in our world today, you might be surprised to know that it's always been an ugly word, even from back in Bible times, because it's indicating that the accuser was accusing God of being unfair, of having ideas and running his government in a way that was unfair. Now, this war in heaven eventually spills over to earth. And my friends, this is where we get the pesky tree. This is where that infamous tree of the knowledge of good and evil comes in. It is like a voting booth for humankind to cast their votes on whether they want to follow God's government or whether they want to follow the Satan's government. Okay, I'm jumping ahead because I'm watching the minutes dwindle. I want you to read this if you haven't yet. But it was a war of ideas, concepts, and governing principles. And what's going on here? This is the theme that I just wanted to get to. You can read the details on your own. But why would God allow that tree? How old were you guys when you first started asking that question? Why would God allow the accuser to come to a tree in the middle of his beautiful, perfect garden in this beautiful, perfect world? And why would he even let him approach Adam and Eve? Have you ever wondered that question?
The power of choice, yes.
The power of choice. Doug's onto it. So back to this God of love, back to this God of other-centeredness. For real love to exist, we know there has to be something else in existence. And what is that?
Freedom.
Freedom or liberty, you might say. Freedom of choice, free will. Because there is no word in the English language for forced true love. We have a word for forced sexual performance. It's a very ugly and dirty word. We have, but those things cannot exist together. You have to have choice. You have to have liberty. You have to have freedom in order to offer true love. You have to be able to not love. And so what's going on in this situation here is that God has been walking face to face with Adam and Eve. He has loved them. He has poured himself into their relationship. They've gotten together some kind of trust, some kind of appreciation for each other. According to the Bible, they're walking together in the cool of the day regularly. And God explicitly, according to the Bible writer, gives these instructions. Go anywhere you want. But please, 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 for the love of love, do not go to this tree. This tree will do nothing but bring death. And as the story goes, Eve walks away from Adam's side. They don't have accountability. The Satan appears as a snake, convinces Eve to go ahead and take some fruit of the tree. Eve goes ahead and follows her own way, suggested to her by the serpent. And that is the time when this beautiful community, this beautiful humanity where love and trust have reigned supreme, meets its early demise. Now, we could talk more about the liberty and the freedom aspect, but I think you understand it. Why allow the tree? All of our big questions. To not allow freedom of choice would be to be a god of manipulation. And imagine the accuser and his ability to go up and say, you know what? God didn't even give humanity a choice. My way is better. My government's better, but I wasn't given a choice. That would be strong. So with that, I think that we've kind of covered some of the major points of this chapter. I know it goes quick, but I want to know if anybody has any questions about these first 3 chapters before we get. And if there's no questions, we will take comments. So get your questions in and have some of the panel join us. Matt and Seth, if you've got this invite link, would you copy and paste that into the chat? It looks like we've got, doesn't look like we have any trolls tonight, so I feel pretty safe doing it. Do you guys want to post that in case anybody wants to pop on here and ask a question or make a comment live? All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and open up for comments. Anything in the first 3 chapters, any quotes from the road that really got you juiced, or something that you wanted to share, personal experience? We've got about 5 minutes to kind of get to know you guys and what you were thinking as you went through. Hi, Alondra.
I think as the questions come, something that really struck me in the first chapter, and also in the introduction of the video of the book, sorry, is that at the end of the day, Christianity, it's something that is more than intellectual. Like as we start in this journey, the invitation really is come and try it. Like actually, it's not just an idea. If when you approach it, nothing actually happens to you, there's no experience, there wouldn't be a point to this, you know. So that was something that really struck me from this book. It's an invitation, and if you will, if I can say it that way, it's a challenge to God. It's like, is there really a God, and is he really love, and if he is, can he really help me answer the questions that I have, or figure out the things that I'm wondering, or whatever else. So I really liked how we're aiming to go beyond, you know, Amy, discussing ideas to actually like having an experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Gonna take a question that I saw here from Cyrus. When did God make angels? And I have already silently designated Mark. We've been pointing at Mark. Mark, take it. Mark, when did God make angels?
I am not going to do what Amy told me to do, which was just say something and make it up and then, run with it. But honestly, so Genesis and the Bible tells us the creation story of humans, and we have that. And Amy said something earlier. We don't know how long the period was that Adam and Eve, or as far as the first beings, and so we know that in the Bible story it's a short time, but we can't say how many days or years it was. And likewise, we know that angels were created before humans because they're on the scene already. When you look in other portions of Christian scripture, you see that there's a story that predates the creation story. But honestly, we don't know. We can guess, but there's no way to really say other than before
humans,
right?
Before Earth, could we?
Right. That's all that we can say. If we trust Christian scripture, then that's all that we can really point to. But we don't have an exact time or whatever else, unfortunately.
And we've talked about the some like apocryphal writings and stuff like that. There may be clues in other scripture that, for whatever reason, weren't accepted into Christian to Christian canon, but and we don't know how reliable they are. They're not as reliable as what we have in the Bible, as far as who the author is, when the date was. We just don't know. But something that I'd be interested in, if anybody knows, are there any stories, any myths about exactly when the angels came about? I don't know. Thank you so much for your question, Cyrus. All right. I think this will wrap us up for tonight. I see Rhonda has, would there have ever been a time that they could have approached the tree? All right. Rhonda, thank you. This is purely conjecture on my part. But I think yes. I want to make it clear, this is not from the Bible at all. But I think yes. You know why? I'm putting my trust in this loving, other-centered God. I think that at a certain time, when Adam and Eve had been exposed to it for long enough, I think God could legitimately say to the accuser, you've been doing your thing long enough. Time to get on, old boy. I just think there'd be a time when it was no longer needed. And I'm guessing, if I know how life for me goes, it was probably like just one day after Eve sinned. I'm guessing she just missed it. That just seems like how life is, right? So, this is just opinion of Amy. First Opinions 316. Anybody else want to add? All right. Go for it, Mark.
Oh, no. Well, there's one thing, but it's in chapter 2 that I loved, but that you mentioned earlier. But no, this question is a great one to me, and one that I think I'd have to wrestle with. I think I might almost go. We know that there was another tree in the garden as well, but that's for another discussion for another time. But I feel like it's almost like how long will you, as far as, I want to get into what you mean by would there ever been a time that they could have approached the tree? Because I feel like there's so much you can do in approaching it, but I mean, and not to get into semantics or to get into being super technical, but I think that question, that's such a huge question, and would have still been there. I hear what Amy's saying as well, and there's a part of me that also.
Mark's saying that I went shallow and I could have gone deep.
Oh no! That's not. Never at all.
Bible slap down.
Never ever. Amy is only looking at the time, but wow, I wish that question had come in earlier.
Yeah, we can also be here a little earlier before questions too. Sometimes. All right. Fiona says the road's explanation of the existence of the tree is the first one I've heard that genuinely makes sense. I really deepens my respect for God. Fiona, thank you so much. And then I wanted to take Maria's as the final one. How do we know what Adam and Eve looked like?
In the image of God.
Yeah, I have no idea. I do not know. So Doug is saying that Adam and Eve were made in the image of God. We didn't get to this. This is in the book, by the way. This is a little bit of girl power, but it is male and female together, not individually. Both. I don't know how to say this. The fact that there is a male and a female, that is the image of God.
The unity.
Yes, the unity, the both of them, it's like A plus B is the image of God. So that's something very interesting for people who are curious about women's rights. Now Mark's getting all hot and bothered. But Maria, back to you. We don't really know what Adam and Eve look like. We do hear reports that because of the hyperoxygenation in the environment, they were bigger and stronger and more beautiful. And of course they were perfect. So I don't know what that means, because I don't think it was what we would think of supermodels or anything like that. But yeah.
Amy, we gotta throw in the bad joke there, Like
What?
we know the Eve was gorgeous because, you've heard this one, Pastor Mark, that, when Adam saw her, he says, whoa,
Oh,
man,
man.
woman, whoa, man. I know that's a bad joke. I just had to throw it in there.
That's for all you dads
You
out
kind of
there.
asked for it, Amy. So, yeah.
Yes. All right, guys, thank you so much. If we didn't get to your question, if we somehow overlooked you, I'm so sorry. I want to thank chat hosts. I want to thank everybody who got on here to hang out with us tonight. It is such a pleasure to meet with you and talk about big concepts, because whenever we are looking at the kind of people we want to become, we are looking, we will shape our lives after the ideas that we hold. And the idea about the God that we hold is one of the biggest pursuits that you can ever, go on. And, we'll talk more, I'm sure, as we get into this. But the view that we hold of God and his benevolence will change our lives as humans, and it will change the lives of people around us. So thank you so much for your time, for your pursuit of the Christian scriptures, and hit me up at greater than rubies. Oh, that's my personal one, but you can do. But ask a Christian friend at gmail.com, or you can get us on Ask a Christian on YouTube or facebook.com/Ask a Christian Friend. All those places, I will answer you. So thank you again for your time, and I'll flip this camera around so Doug can say bye to you too. All right, guys, that's it. And see you next Wednesday. Same time, different place. All right, bye for now.